Okay, a couple of things I noticed from the videos that I've posted so far. One, I didn't really show the panel as it has turned out. So this is our panel. There's a little red light flashing. It's my camera flashing against the instrument dials. You see that the dials appear to have glass faces. The bezels, the rings around each dial face, and the small switch panel to the right. And I need to research the knob pull feature. I know that's I don't think that's mixture. It could be mixture. I've been watching videos and looking at photographs, and it seems that the only thing on the left hand side in the cockpit, on the sidewall of the cockpit, is the throttle that comes through the sidewall, and just kind of a lever that comes through. And I don't see a mixture there, and I'm pretty sure this airplane would have had a mixture, lean rich mixture lever, and I think that's what that is, but I'll research that. Anyway, that's more or less what the item looks like. There it is. And I think I showed that it now fits. I've reduced the edges of it so that the cabin sidewalls will fit. On the seats, what I ended up doing was not adding sides per se, but I just filled in the back and bottom with some 1/8 inch balsa sheet, and then sanded that around so that we have a nice uniform looking seat thickness. And again, there's a little bit of grain showing there, so I'll probably fill that one more time. I want to leave it a little bit the way it is, just because that kind of replicates the wrinkling you see in vinyl over time. Vinyl seats get a little bit of cracked and wrinkled like that, but I am going to fill it just a little bit more. So that's the panel, the seats, our engine, dummy mock-up engine, the cowling and so forth. I think we talked about that. There's the other thing I wanted to do is, as I'm going over the infill here, and we noticed that this the Aranca has a lot of lines to it. In other words, it's not really slab-sided, it's multifaceted. On the bottom especially, it's almost like a float, the way it's constructed with all those chines and those angles. And you see, there's some curvature and compound curvature going on along these lines on the bottom here. So I've had to use do some wetting of the infill pieces, and warping and twisting, and adding radius to them, radiusing them to fit. It's been an interesting process getting all these different compound curves to go. Now for the rear half of the fuselage, it's pretty straightforward. There isn't a whole lot of that, but up underneath here on the bottom and around the cowling at the front, where it meets the cowling, there's some radiusing. I could have added extra stringers to take out some of that, but in the long run, or in the end, you still have to make these curves work and find the shape and make it right. And sanding and filling is a way to do that too. And I don't have much luck adding stringers. When I start cutting these notches, I end up getting splits and cracks in the bulkheads and stuff. So I've gotten leery of doing it. I just do it this way. I make the infill pieces that I'm making. I use water and these dowels to get them to conform to the shape I want, and then apply them. Trimming them after they're soaked is not difficult. You just flatten them out and lay the ruler on them and cut them, then go back and warp them again. Balsa is pretty durable. It can take it. The other thing I didn't really talk about here yet either was the cut down I did to these 3 bulkheads in here, bulkhead 2, 3, and 4. So if you remember, if you've seen this this airplane before, you'll know that these bulkheads here at the cockpit opening, they extend all the way out to the center line, and that wasn't going to work for me. If anytime you're modeling an interior, you've got to cut that stuff away. And in one of the videos where before I laid them up, I showed that I had scored cut them. I had kind of pre sliced, so that when it was time to actually clean them out, I wouldn't need to apply too much pressure with the knife in there and possibly crack or fracture something. So now you can see those are completely cleaned out and removed to the point where they're almost flush with these side keels. And that'll give us a much more realistic looking interior when I start dropping in the cardstock sides and kind of curtain the sides. You'll see how that looks. That'll look a lot better, a lot cleaner with the cardstock in there too. Okay, so those were just a couple of issues. And no matter how simple model you're going to build, there's always something to it, a little more detail to them, a little more effort required of them, even though it could be the simplest thing. And on the other hand, if you're going for a very easy or smooth appearing fuselage, you pick something out maybe because it looks simple and it has a smooth look to it. Achieving that smoothness can become the challenge. Achieving those easy lines and then trying to make that, I don't know, interesting or just capturing it can be difficult in a way. But when I started working on this, I noticed all these different chines, all these different lines of the Aranca, but getting into infilling it has really kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to just how multifaceted this little fuselage is. And we haven't really trying to net it together, doing the infill, getting the cabin sides, getting the interior built up, and then finishing this fuselage in such a way that it's clean and smooth with all of these facets and chines going on. It's going to be an interesting build in a lot of ways. And here I thought I was going to pick something kind of quick and easy for the channel, and maybe that's the point of it. Having an opportunity to describe how much of a challenge even the most basic thing can be in this realm. The other thing too, I'm probably rambling now, but for plastic scale modelers that might be looking for something new, this is as far as why I'm doing the channel. A friend of mine said, you're not getting a whole lot of hits, you're not getting a whole lot of views. And I said, I don't care about that. He said, well, how many people actually do this? And I said, well, there's a big, good-sized company. Gillo's been at this for a while. They pump out these kits. I don't know how many they're producing, but their year-over-year sales are increasing. There's no, they're not having any flat spots. Dumas is adding new kits all the time. They're a big manufacturer. Herr Engineering, Herr Engineering, another company pumping these things out. They're going somewhere. Somebody's buying them. Somebody's building them. Or somebody's opening the box and looking at the contents and thinking, I'm not going to be able to do that because it's foreign. It's when you're used to buying plastic models and you open one of these kits, it's a completely, in a way, it's the same world, but it's a completely different way of doing it. Plastic kit, you open it up and you've got these preformed sides and wing halves and tail pieces, and then you have these detail parts for landing gear and so on. But they're all made for you. You're just cutting them off a tree, cleaning them up. There's a little bit of variation in talent and ability there as to how the model's going to turn out. But essentially, the lion's share of the work is done. Excuse me. And all you're doing is assembling. It's a little different with this. Here you're almost creating, the fuselage. Sure, the parts are there, and this is where it's the same. Parts are there, they're numbered just like a plastic kit. But a lot more effort has to be made by the builder to secure these shapes, these forms, from these parts that are numbered on these sheets of balsa wood. And then after that is where it's really interesting in that the sky is the limit. It's like you end up with something that's like a blank canvas, even though you built something up. I mean, I could do really anything with this fuselage. I could replicate all the plumbing of the engine and fuel and the wiring and all that stuff, and I could wire the controls. I could rig the control sticks to the tail and the ailerons. That's done. There are modelers doing that all the time. Detailing the interior and going in the other way. Instead of technical, I could outfit it. Put backpacks and sleeping bags in the back area, and a seat in the front, and maybe a small dog. We could strap a canoe to the float struts. Everything else, and granted, you can do those kinds of things with the plastic kit too. But here it really comes down to me what's in the model, what's on the model, and exactly how this shape is built. I'll be adding some of the chines and lines that are sort of missing from the photographs I've seen. There are a few details, and I'll talk about them as I'm doing it when we get to that point. Right now it's just that I'm still building the blank canvas, if you will. I mean, sure, I've established some of the things that I'm going to do with that canvas, but for the most part I'm still in the very infant stage of putting together and getting to what I'm calling the blank canvas, the thing that then I am then going to really concentrate on doing it in my way, putting my stamp on, if you will. So that's the most intriguing thing, or the interesting thing I found about modeling in this way. And really, you can't get plastic kits of a lot of these civilian airplanes. You just can't. If you do find them, they're 1/72 scale, and they look very much like toys, versus something that's got obviously a lot more effort, a lot more size to it, a lot more room for detail and so on. And as a scale, as a plastic modeler for a long time, I mean, I was frustrated that you couldn't find civilian aircraft, and that also that so much of the work is really kind of done for you, just piecing things together in that realm more than you are in this one. Anyway, that's part of the. Again, this is a talk show here apparently, but that's when people ask me why my friends who don't build these models, whose eyes glaze over if I do start talking about it. That's why there are 3, 4, 5, 6 major manufacturers of these kits, all producing them and adding new models all the time, and so they're going somewhere. And I thought it would be cool if those people are opening these boxes and maybe being a little getting kind of a deer in the headlights look when they open the box. And I'm sure there are those guys that are building to fly, and that's good too. But I'm thinking that, well, if these can be built up in this way, I'm more than happy to show one way of doing it. There are a lot of builders doing this. Virtual aerodrome.com, Virtual Aerodrome, has a lot of modelers building like this. I see them on the Gillow site, on the Dumas on their Facebook page. Handful of people building this way. and other sites too. I mean, and then there's all the RC flyers, the electric flyers, who are building, trying to get as scale as they can while keeping weight down. And I use cardstock and just balsa in a lot of these things. And with the power of these electric motors now, the weight that I'm adding in some cases isn't enough to prevent a finely detailed model from flying. So that's why I'm doing it. I just want to maybe show some alternatives to things that people had been doing with these kits. Some alternatives that may be interesting to plastic modelers, and that kind of thing. And if along the way, it's entertaining or what have you, then even better. So I'll talk to you guys later.